It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Our friend Cody sent me this question. He says, I can't find an answer to this question. Why has the art or sport of boxing stayed very legit, while other combat arts like karate and some other arts have become synonymous with McDojos? Well, Cody, that is very, very simple. You can't fake boxing. Either you box or you don't. Whereas with karate and many other traditional martial arts, you can go to a karate class, a taekwondo class, a kung fu class, all these other traditional martial arts classes, without actually learning how to fight, without any real hands-on fighting, sparring experience. You don't have to get in the ring with many of these. Some of them you do. There are some hardcore traditional martial arts classes out there where you really learn how to fight, but there are many, many where you don't. Where all you have to do for a belt promotion is do the right forms, bow to the right people, pay the right hands, and then there you go, instant black belt. Whereas with boxing, imagine if boxing worked that way for a minute. If you just had to do some boxing kata or something like that, or be good enough on the speed bag and hit the heavy bag enough and pay the right people the right sums of money, and then all of a sudden they were like, yep, you my friend, are a good boxer. And then this guy pats himself on the back, hey, I'm a good boxer because I passed all the tests, I checked all the little boxes, so now I'm good to go. And then they get in a fight, and then they get killed because they don't actually know how to box. And everyone sees that, and they're like, well, dang, boxing sucks. That guy didn't know how to fight. But what has kept boxing legitimate is the fact that the sport of boxing is prevalent and popular, and boxing itself, the act of boxing, getting in the ring, putting on the gloves, sparring, trading punches, is synonymous with the word boxing. Whereas doing the equivalent of sparring is not synonymous with karate or taekwondo or kung fu or any of that stuff. Because the system of traditional martial arts, which means following a tradition, and following the tradition takes a greater deal of importance in the dojo than actually learning how to fight, how to be an efficient and effective fighter. Whereas in a combat sport, what takes precedence there is becoming an efficient and effective fighter, being able to win at the sport. Let's look at some other sports. What's a sport out there? Oh, basketball. A lot of people like basketball. Basketball's popular in a number of countries throughout the world. It's quite popular here in China. It's popular in the United States where I grew up. Imagine for a moment, though, if there was no National Basketball Association and basketball was not a popular sport. And kids didn't play basketball on the streets. They didn't play basketball at gyms. They didn't have pickup games. It just wasn't a really popular thing. It was kind of an esoteric game that people had largely forgotten about. Imagine if basketball was like that. And then you had a secret basketball master out there who was teaching his students to play basketball, but they never actually got on the court. They never put their hands on the ball. They never threw the ball toward the hoop. They just went through some basketball-like movements. Okay? How good would these people be at basketball? By trying to uphold these traditional movements from basketball, but without actually playing the game. They would suck. They would suck. They'd just get worked if they actually played a real pickup game with anybody with any modicum of experience whatsoever. Amateur, professional, or otherwise. And this is what has happened to traditional martial arts. They take these fighting movements where it has been decided that this tradition of movement must be kept. This is the most important thing. Preserving this tradition, preserving this form, wearing this uniform, bowing in this way, saying these specific words, observing these ordinances in the dojo, if you will. These are more important. Calling ourselves by this name, by this label, using these words to describe ourselves is more important than learning to be an effective and efficient fighter. And that's why, my friend. But you step into a boxing gym, yeah, there's some tradition that I think boxing would do well to replace with some more effective training methods. But most of those traditions are built up around the idea of this is hard work and hard work pays off, and that those are true principles. So I'm not a big fan of skipping rope for 30 minutes before a training session. A lot of boxers do that. I think that time could be spent better, but skipping rope doesn't make you a worse boxer. In fact, in many cases, it can help make you a better one. I'm not a big fan of lengthy road work as consistently as many people do it in the boxing community, but I won't tell them not to, because road work won't make you worse, and in many cases will make you better, and it will make you mentally strong, if nothing else. I think that time could be better spent taking a more scientific approach to winning at combat sports, but as the old saying goes, if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? So, right now, the boxing champions for a very long time have been the guys who follow these very specific traditions of exercises that make them stronger, more effective, and so on. Are there better ways to do it? Yeah, probably. But are the ways they're doing it working? Yeah, and that's demonstrable. But tradition aside, the traditions of boxing are there for a very specific reason: to give fighters an athletic edge, to make them better athletes. You know, all that running, all that skipping, all of these things boxers do give them an athletic edge over the guys who don't put in that level of work. Compare that to the traditions of a karate or taekwondo school, doing forms which contain techniques that they will never use in their sparring or their sport format. And in other contexts, there is value to those forms, but as far as the actual sparring in taekwondo, for example, 99% of what happens in the forms doesn't apply, because those techniques are never ever used in sparring, and most of them would be penalized in sparring with disqualification. Because taekwondo isn't taekwondo anymore. Karate isn't karate anymore. Kung fu isn't kung fu anymore. But the traditions are still the traditions. It's like ballet, classical ballet. Compare that to modern dance. I make this comparison quite a bit, comparing classical ballet to traditional martial arts and modern dance to combat sports. In classical ballet, you have to move your body in very, very specific ways. Okay? You have to move your arms in very specific patterns. Otherwise, it's not ballet. You have to move your legs in very specific patterns. Otherwise, it's not ballet. If you introduce new movements and new concepts, even if they're beautiful, even if they have the best of artistic intentions behind them, it's not ballet anymore, not classical ballet anymore. Just like if you are doing karate and you do movements from some other martial art that are not karate, suddenly it's not that particular style of karate anymore. I bet Jesse Enkamp would say, but all fighting is karate. Had a conversation with him a while back. interesting guy. But you know what I mean. The tradition of that specific style. That's what we're talking about. So there's a long answer to a pretty short and simple question, my friend. Because boxers fight for the most part, and not all traditional martial artists do. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.